The celestial nexus station hummed with the usual cacophony of 1,000 species conducting business across the galaxy. In the dimly lit corner of the Seventh Ring Tavern, Isabella sat nursing a glass of Andromedan whiskey, her dark eyes scanning the crowd with practiced indifference. She'd learned long ago that blending in was the key to survival when you were one of the few humans crazy enough to venture this far into contested space. Across from her, Leo leaned back in his chair, his muscular frame relaxed but alert, the scar across his jawline a souvenir from the Kepler 442 incident caught the bioluminescent lighting as he smiled at something Isabella had said. They were waiting for their cargo manifest to clear customs, a process that could take anywhere from an hour to 3 days, depending on how many palms needed greasing. Another round for the Deathworlders. A booming voice called out from across the tavern. Isabella's fingers tightened almost imperceptibly around her glass. That word, Deathworlder. Some species used it with respect, even fear. Others wielded it like a slur. The source of the voice was a Krathin warrior, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming purple and black under the lights. He stood nearly 8 feet tall, his forearms gesticulating wildly as he regaled a group of smaller species with what was clearly meant to be an impressive tale. His mandibles clicked with amusement as his audience leaned in. "You should have seen the human's face when my blade pierced its primitive armor," the Krathin continued, his translator rendering his chittering speech into galactic common. "They call themselves apex predators, survivors of a death world, but they die just as easily as any other soft-skinned mammal." Leo's jaw clenched, but Isabella placed a gentle hand on his forearm. "Not worth it," she murmured. The Krathin warrior, whose name tag identified him as Commander Zthar, was warming to his subject now. His audience had grown, drawing in curious onlookers from neighboring tables. "I've killed 3 Deathworlders in single combat," he bragged, his voice carrying across the tavern. The first begged for mercy in 7 different languages. The second tried to bargain with credits. The third, he paused for dramatic effect. The third actually tried to fight back. It lasted almost 10 seconds. Laughter rippled through his audience, though some species shifted uncomfortably. Humans had a reputation, after all. A reputation built on 100 desperate battles, on refusing to surrender even when logic demanded it, on turning lost causes into Pyrrhic victories that made entire star systems think twice about conflict. 10 seconds, Isabella said loudly, setting her glass down with a deliberate clink. The sound cut through the tavern's ambient noise like a knife. "That's impressive. Most Krathin warriors I've encountered couldn't last 5 seconds against a properly trained human." The tavern fell silent. Zthar's antennae swiveled toward Isabella, his multiple eyes focusing on her with predatory interest. "And what would a soft creature like you know about combat?" His mandibles spread in what might have been a smile. Isabella stood slowly, her movements fluid and controlled. She was barely 5.5 feet tall, dwarfed by the massive alien, but something in her posture made several patrons step back. "I know that the human you claim lasted 10 seconds was probably wounded, exhausted, or both. I know that Krathin exoskeletons, while impressive, have exactly 3 weak points that any Academy graduate could exploit in under 2 seconds. Leo remained seated, but his hand had casually moved to rest near the plasma pistol at his hip. "Just in case." "You dare," Zthar began, his voice rising. "I dare," Isabella interrupted, her tone conversational but her eyes hard as steel. "Because I'm a survivor of the Proxima massacre, where 12 humans held off a Krathini assault battalion for 6 days. I dare because I watched my unit command woman who couldn't have weighed more than 60 kilos stake down a Krathian warlord in hand-to-hand combat, while, bleeding from 17 separate wounds, she took a step closer to Zed, tilting her head up to meet his lowest pair of eyes. And I dare because, unlike the humans you supposedly killed, I'm not wounded, exhausted, or caught off guard. I'm right here, Commander Zed." Front and center, the Krathin's exoskeleton plates shifted, a sign of agitation that every spacer knew to recognize. "You're claiming to be a warrior." His voice dripped with contempt. "You look like a cargo hauler." "Currently, I am a cargo hauler," Isabella agreed. "It pays better and involves significantly less paperwork than my previous occupation. But if you'd like a demonstration of what a soft-skinned mammal from a death world can do when properly motivated, I'm happy to provide one. There's an arena to dex down, regulation equipment, neural dampeners to prevent lethal injury, and a betting pool that I'm sure would be very interested in our little disagreement." The challenge hung in the air like a physical thing. Zthar's antennae quivered, and Isabella could see the calculations running behind his eyes. She'd boxed him in perfectly. Refuse, and he'd look like a coward who only attacked the unprepared. Accept, and he'd have to face someone who clearly knew exactly what she was doing. I have no interest in theatrical displays for the amusement of rabble, Zthar finally said, his translator adding a sneer to his words. My battles are real, not games in an arena. Of course, Isabella said, her smile not reaching her eyes. How convenient that all your victories seem to occur when there are no witnesses who might contradict your version of events. She turned back to her table, dismissing him as thoroughly as if he'd ceased to exist. It was a calculated insult, one that made several species in the crowd click or chirp or hum with appreciation. Zthar stood frozen for a moment, his pride warring with his survival instinct. Finally, with a harsh clicking sound, he turned and stalked out of the tavern, his followers trailing behind him like debris in a gravity well. As Isabella reclaimed her seat, Leo shook his head with a mixture of admiration and exasperation. You know he's going to check the Proxima Massacre records. I know, Isabella said, picking up her whiskey, and when he does, he'll find my name right there in the survivors list. Lieutenant Isabella Chen, 3rd Marines, holder of the Stellar Cross for Valor. And then, Isabella's smile turned cold. And then he'll realize that the Deathworlder he was bragging about killing in front of was not just any human, but one who's actually earned the title. Word will spread, and maybe, just maybe, the next time a Krathian warrior thinks about attacking an unarmed human, he'll remember this moment and think twice. Leo raised his own glass in a silent toast. In the deadly calculus of interstellar relations, reputation was often the only thing keeping the peace. Isabella had just reinforced humanity's reputation with nothing more than words and presence. Outside the tavern, the celestial Nexus station continued its eternal dance of commerce and diplomacy, unaware that in one small corner, a quiet victory had been won without a single shot fired. That was the human way, after all. Survive first, fight when necessary, and always make them remember why Earth was classified as a death world in the first place.